Welcome to Supporters Fund, Ask an Angel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Profit. And today, let's welcome Isaac. How are you today, sir?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me.
We're super excited. I've been following your journey for a couple of years now because the real venture world is always out there talking and making things happen. You and I have crossed paths a few times, so was super excited that I got the opportunity to have you on today. And the best way we like to start is if you can share a little bit about your background, all the way from those days at Yahoo, all the way through, and then one thing about you that nobody would know.
Okay, super. Very glad to be here, and love that you're doing this to share people's different voices. So really nice to be a part of it. I'll go all the way back to the beginning, I guess, to just sort of set up the story, because I'm a bit of an odd duck in tech, being that I was not studying engineering or even business. I was actually studying religion and philosophy in undergrad at Columbia. I'm from the US, I'm from Massachusetts, and I was going to school in New York. So I was very much a humanities guy, reading books and trying to figure out the meaning of life. And a guy in one of my classes said, hey, this was during the dot-com boom. So about 1998, I guess, or 99. And he said, hey, we got this startup going. What you want to come check it out? And so I got involved in this project, these three entrepreneurs who had known each other. And we actually moved to New Jersey for a while and lived in their basement. And I dropped out of school for a while. And we were doing like ed tech sort of startup during the dot-com boom, which did not go anywhere. So it was like, it really fell flat in the end. But we went on this crazy journey together as really young people trying to build a company. And so that kind of exposed me to the technology world, which I hadn't been, heavily exposed to before, and really planted a seed in my brain. Well, I went back to school. I finished my degree. I kept studying. I traveled and did some other stuff after school. But I had this tech experience, this sort of year plus in startup land. And so when it came time to kind of like start building a career for myself, I went back to that and became a product manager. I sort of like just found a job in a publishing company. This was in New York at Scholastic through some family connections. And I was they didn't even call it product manager then. It was so long ago. They called it producer. But I was, the low man on the totem pole, helping us, these developers and designers and business people build educational technology, and sort of worked my way up into what is now called product management, which is this linchpin role where you help guide the development of technology, which has become kind of really central in the technology world over these 20 years. And so I started at Scholastic. I was there in New York for quite a few years, learning how to become a product manager, or what they call the producer. Ended up getting married. We decided. So my wife is this awesome professor. She's now at McGill, which is why we're here. But at the time, she was a graduate student. She finished. She got a job in Singapore. And so she brought us to Singapore, just other side of the world, completely different. And what an eye opener. I could give a whole podcast just on Singapore, but it's not the point. And so I used that time. I went to business school. I got a business degree at INSEAD, which was a really great experience, and turned that into doing more product management and product marketing work at Yahoo, and spent a bunch of years out there in the, really Singapore is a very developed country, but you're working the scene in Southeast Asia. So really developing markets, a very different environment for technology, very, very different consumer base. So really just learned a lot about, how diverse the world is, and at the same time, how unifying technology is. And it's like everybody wants these cell phones, and they want the cloud, and they want the internet, and they want to do commerce. And so that the things that this consumer technology revolution and all of the technology revolutions that we're living in were totally relevant out there, but just in a different way. So awesome experience being a part of that, and also awesome experience working at a big technology company like Yahoo, where you learn sort of how things are done at scale. They had more than 500 million users at the time, and it was even growing. So a real education about what it looks like when a company gets big. Also, a slow moving large corporation who, to be frank, was a little bit on the way down. So at some point it was like, I think if I felt very strongly pulled back to the startup world, where, as you know, and as anyone involved knows, just a lot more fast moving, agile, exciting. You have more impact, you have more able to influence the projects that you're working on. So I've made that transition when I was still in Singapore by going to work for a sort of venture capital startup studio called Pollinizer, which was a great experience. Then my awesome wife got an awesome job at McGill. And so it was a time for us to kind of move back to North America. She's from Ontario. So we've been here in Montreal, which is sort of halfway between where the two of us grew up and we had 2 kids in Singapore. So we brought our family back here, and I've been in Montreal for 8 years. And because I knew how to do product management and liked it, that's what I did in Montreal. I introduced myself around and met some people that say, I'm looking for companies, looking for fast moving, fast growing startups where I can work. And I was lucky to connect to the guys at Frank and Oak, Ethan and Hisham, while they were, I think they'd raised the Series A. So they were, but early in their growth. And I came on as the first product manager and, director of product, and built out the product management function there. And I did that for a couple of years. I went to Sonder, which is another, fast moving, consumer focused, sort of tech powered company in Montreal. Same sort of thing. First product manager, built the product management function. So that was my experience entering the market in Montreal. Those companies were backed by Real Ventures. And so I met the Real Ventures team in lots of different ways. I was mentoring in Founder Fuel, the Real Ventures Accelerator. I was helping out at Notman House, which is sort of like a Real Ventures backed nonprofit. So everywhere I looked, I was crossing paths with this group, and they really shared, or I shared their values, or vice versa, which was around, supporting technology and getting involved in, backing startups, but also building ecosystem, building community, bringing people closer together. Those were the 2 things that I was passionate about. So we really were singing off the same tune. And when I left Sonder, they said, "Hey, do you want to come try investing?" And I was like, at that point I knew a little bit about what venture capital was, but to be honest, not that much. But I could see that it would be an opportunity for me to learn, to have impact, to interact with this community in a different way. So I was like, absolutely, let me give it a chance. And so that's what I've been doing for the past 5 years. I came on and ended up becoming a partner, running Founder Fuel, the accelerator, for a few years, but also doing lots and lots of very early stage investing, pre-seed and early seed investing as part of a fund at Real that's really focused on the Quebec economy, Quebec startups, but kind of backed by pension funds and the government that want to see this growth in the Quebec economy. And that kind of brings us to today. So I'm 5 years in. So I still sort of remember what it's like to work in these startups and companies, but now I'm very squarely on the investor side and learning that craft and the way that, investors add value, and still doing a lot of community building. We just I started a big product management, or helped start a big product management meetup when I moved to Montreal, called Product Tank Montreal. And now I'm involved in another product management sort of a collective learning group called APM Montreal, which is happy to talk about more. So still doing the community building and bringing people together, working as an early stage VC, and loving being in Canada, which is just, as I think Americans underestimate how awesome Canada is on just many, many ways. And we see that it scores like number 1 in quality of life on these things, but I don't think we get it. We don't get it because that's how Americans are, a little bit thick-headed, but just has been delightful to live in this country and specifically Montreal, and Quebec, which is such a unique and unusual place, complicated place, where I've just learned a lot. So that brings us to today. That's a little bit of background. And I was supposed to say one thing people don't know. So I'll just say, because I was having this conversation with someone and I gave them this fact and they go, "Oh, I didn't really know that about you." So I'll use it again here. So as I said, I studied religion and philosophy in undergrad, and I really did it as a way to study Asian philosophy and get into Eastern religion. And in addition to reading these books and studying like that, I also got, at the time, very into meditation. And I was like doing meditation retreats and volunteering at the meditation center and running the Buddhist meditation club at Columbia. So it was a big part. It's not as big a part of my life today, but that I was reminded of that the other day. And it's sort of, and it is something that I still call on in different ways. So there it is. I was like heavy into that stuff. There's a little fact.
I love it. That's awesome. And to kind of peel back a little bit, when you were kind of the way that you got brought into this world of tech, it's quite fascinating. And I'm sure that if we dive into different conversations with different people in VC world and everything else, there's always one trigger point that kind of brought you into something that changed your day or your year or now your entire career. And you went from being in, obviously, at Columbia for something completely different. And you were brought into that energized, working in a group in a basement, switching cities, and really diving in. And the learning that is probably the best learning you probably had compared to anything else you've done today, which was, that grind, that hustle, figuring out what it took to be a startup. Is there any memorable moments that you had that you want to share that you can just say, you know what, this was the best thing I got out of that 1.5 years that I was working on the grind and figuring this startup out?
It was very memorable. The whole experience of, and it's almost like cliched, but like we literally moved into these people's basement and we're just like, we lived there for a while and just tried to so we were around each other all this time as sort of the three founders and a few people who hopped on for the ride. So that whole incredible cohesion and really being part of the founding team, and it's all very scrappy. Right? Like you don't, even after we got money, it's very scrappy. You don't really know what you're doing. So that whole experience of being very tightly knit with those people and going through all the ups and downs was very memorable. I would say getting the funding was certainly like, you couldn't believe, like, really someone's going to give us all this money to do this. So that was kind of a moment I'm sort of paging through my mind of the moments I really remember, but for sure that meeting where the guy says yes, I remember that. And we also, we were in the basement for quite a while, and then we moved into offices on Wall Street, like a proper office. Probably, maybe in retrospect, we should not have been in an office on Wall Street, but we certainly were there. And so that juxtaposition, and having gone from like, I was, basically studying philosophy to living in this basement to getting on the train every day. Like I got an apartment in Brooklyn and getting on the train every day and popping out at Wall Street with all the other workers. And I'm like, 20 years old, going into this office and having a job and getting a paycheck. That was crazy and very exhilarating. Like it felt very cool. So a bunch of memories pop up from that time. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you know what, I think when you look at today and what you're doing, that's a really big example of being able to really work with founders and being able to share that, you've gone through the ringer and you've done the same things. And, maybe like you said, you advanced quickly and we're on Wall Street. Well, that's the same kind of perspective that the young startups that you guys are working with or other VCs out there are working with, that they're looking for that, right? They're looking for somebody to have, hey, you know what it takes. I've been through this, and do you know the pains I'm going through? And you can kind of relate to that. And it sounds like you had some great experiences that carried you through to be able to really 100% with these new founders.
Oh yeah. I think there's many paths to investment, and some people only do the investment and they and did not operate, and they can be amazing investors. So it's not at all required. However, having been on the front lines there, and Frank and Oak and Sonder, and even, experience at Yahoo, like all the operating experience in different ways you can call on and build empathy and that's important. Hopefully you're giving good advice, but B, hopefully you're doing so in a way where you are able to a little bit put yourself in the other person's shoes. Certainly makes you a better partner to them, a better supporter. So yeah, I'm happy to have had those experiences, and they come into play all of the time.
And when you were taking some of this experience from this early company and you started to move into other businesses, and of course getting into Yahoo and working your way through Singapore in that ecosystem, did you find that there were some differences there that popped out from being in a totally different environment that you kind of had to learn? And again, this stuff sounds pretty impactful. Again, being in Asia versus US or Canada, that there's got to be some great learning, some great networking, some good communication things that have been built out along those sides. And jumping into big business, I don't think, like you said earlier, that's not really important. What's important is that you had to go into the grind and figure out how to make something better, especially when it was on its way out, and kind of reshape that whole product view. But you're working in a total different environment. So was there, again, a lot of great learnings there that kind of helped build you up for where you are today?
Oh, yeah. And a couple, absolutely. And a couple of stick out. One, working one is about working in big tech or working in a big corporation. And on the one hand, like these are battleships. They're actually like fleets of battleships. Like they're incredibly powerful. And you're like, how do they operate this ship, like this armada? And you go in there, you go, oh wow, I see. Like it's an incredibly complex organization required to funnel information down and get decisions made. And if we're going to turn in a new direction, it's quite difficult. And from that, you go, oh, I get it. They are powerful, but they're always vulnerable because, they have so many wars that they're fighting. Like they're doing all this different stuff. They can't change direction easily. By working in a big company, you sort of get why they win and also why they lose all of these opportunities. Like, why do startups exist, and why do startups that have are not just why do they exist, but how do they succeed and take over massive new markets that are right in front of the incumbents' eyes? And Yahoo, easy to beat up on it. I always have some love for my alumni company, but like Yahoo is the preeminent example. Like they booted numbers of opportunities that were sitting right in front of them, messaging, search, social, or whatever. But when you work inside of these companies, you go, oh, I get it. That's why it's very hard to jump on the next big thing. So that was one big insight, the power of these big companies, but also the vulnerability of them. Working in Asia, I tipped it a little bit when I said it before, but not all consumers are the same. Not all businesses are the same. They're first of all, there's cultural differences. There's also just stages of economic development and stages of maturity. Like working in that ecosystem, we used to, for example, one thing you could do in the Southeast Asia ecosystem, which you can still do today, is you can sort of wait for companies to get started in North America, see what's going on, and then you can start that company in Southeast Asia and probably sell it to the North American company when they're looking to expand. That doesn't work here. So that's like a totally different pattern that's specific to the stage of development of that ecosystem where it's always going to be a little bit behind. But the way venture worked was different there. And so like the world is not just one way. There are groupings that are similar, but it's not just one way. And so that was a great reminder of that. I think we all know that, but at the same time, if you spend your whole time, say, in North America, it's a little bit hard to remember that not everybody has those experiences. Now, the flip side is the other thing that I mentioned earlier, which is, okay, everybody is different and the world is not just one way, but these like powerful secular trends we're riding, which is the power of internet to connect people, of mobile devices to be ubiquitous in that connection, the power of AI and the new software stack to make predictions and to increase efficiency in people's lives and in the lives of businesses. And, as we see the future technology waves that I could talk about, whether it's like quantum or bio or whatever, they are universally relevant at some level, right? They may be applied differently, but these things, it's like you go over there, you go, oh, you guys kind of want that too. And so these are like powerful global trends that are relevant around the world. And you see that more and more. And this world we have today is one where at one level, it's completely interconnected and global, right? And global brands are everywhere and communication technology is everywhere. At the other hand, there's still tons and tons of diversity, especially when you go up and down the economic ladder. So that won't change. You know what I mean? Like there will be iPhones everywhere, but at the same time, there will be, kind of like people living on the street and people living for less than $1 a day. So there's a lot of diversity in the world, and that really came through. It's been nice to come back to North America, where the speed and pace, the sophistication, the access to capital, the types of products and services you can build here are on the cutting edge, because this is like a very mature economy and a mature technological culture. So I had fun there too, but it has been fun to come back and see what you can do building and in an ecosystem that is a little bit more culturally familiar to me as well.
For sure. And I like the line where you say that, there's cultural differences in the areas that they're going to go into. I think maybe sometimes we forget that even in our own domain, that we have to pay attention to the consumer and understand them well enough so that we can sell through. And that is kind of primary piece to any business. I think that falls back into your product side of what you do and what you've been doing for the last 20 years. Is there a couple of tips or things that you can share on the product side that, you can say, look, here's 3 things that you really should pay attention to when you are building out a product and you're going to go to market? Market fit is key, but you mentioned one being cultural differences. Your product's going to be sold maybe in Montreal, but your goal is that it's going to sell across Canada and North America. Maybe you're going to push it into other countries. Is there a few things that really do pop out of all of this that you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, product management. I just first of all, loved the role. And I think it's very cool to have seen the importance of the role grow and grow as this kind of like coordinating role, helping to direct all of this incredible creative energy, right? All these amazing engineers and data scientists and designers and like incredible creative people and product managers were like these enablers of those creative. Hey, look over here. Let's go try this. Let's try to solve this problem in this way. So it's, I just think it's a super fun job, and I'm like still very connected to the product community. And I'm very grateful that I kind of like backed my way into that work in the same way now that I'm grateful to do VC. It is hard to make a product that people really like. You know what I mean? It's not easy. And I think there's a lot of survivorship bias when we read about great companies and great products, and you go like, you hear about the ones that are really successful and they filter down to you and you use them. Well, for every one of, for every calendar app you use, there's like 100 that got trashed. For every anything you use, there's 100. And if you go on Product Hunt or whatever, if you get down into the weeds of it, you're like, wow, a lot of people are trying to do this. And it's not easy to buy. And why is it not easy? It's like, it's often kind of subtle what makes the product something that they really want. Like sometimes it's not subtle, and it's like you have this new invention and you're like, hey, we have a new kind of fuel or something that's just so obviously better. So people will use it. But a lot of the products we use, it's like, the iPhone, which is like this incredibly widespread product, it was like subtle why it was so much better than the other things that were around. It wasn't like immediately obvious, and then it sort of became obvious. So product one thing is just that building great products is hard, and you'll find people who like they have a hit game or a hit product, and this was my 13th attempt to build something. You know what I mean? So it's not easy, and therefore having these, not just the heavyweight skills of coding and designing and like actually being able to do it, but the subtler connective tissue of all of that, the empathy for the end user, the feeling for user experience, and how this product is going to fit into their lives, you need a little bit of that special sauce often, or it helps to have some of that special sauce. So the antidote one antidote to getting that right product is just keep trying, and it's a little bit of luck and whatever. But another antidote is cultivating like a customer empathy, subtlety. When are they going to use the product? How are they going to use the product? Really, really getting down in their shoes. It's not just that product managers do that like everyone should do that. Engineers, designers, or whatever, cultivating that mindset is really important. And I guess another one that pops to mind is the importance of distribution. So product management, you sort of when I started in product management, especially as a producer, I didn't really think about selling the product. I was much more internally focused, tracking bugs and, getting feature schedules and roadmaps. But true product management thinks about success of the product, not just like, oh, I'm going to, ship these features. It's like, no, these features have to be successful. This product has to be successful. People need to buy it. And then you get into the marketing side, which is not exactly the same thing, but there is a lot of interface between product management and product marketing. And I've done both. And it's like, you gotta sell that product. You need distribution. And so a great product with no great distribution or marketing strategy or sales strategy, no, it's not going to work. Great distribution, in fact, is more likely to sell a shitty product to people than a great product is going to win just without any distribution. So really balancing, and sometimes like often all of us are kind of better at one thing than the other. So you'll have these product geniuses out there who don't think enough about distribution. Then you have to say, well, hey, you either need to learn that or you need to get someone on your team who really thinks about getting this product out to the masses in whatever way is appropriate in your industry. On the flip side, you'll have people who can market and sell forever and don't have much of a product sense. And then you need to help them be like, hey, who can you pair with who can really build great stuff that will last? So those are a couple of things that come to mind. It's hard. You got to have customer empathy, and you got to, don't forget about how to distribute the product.
So on that note, when you're talking about the distribution and the product, what is it that the investor is looking for in order to make an investment into a product company? Because product companies have taken a beating over the years, because there's, for every 1,000 product companies, one is a hit. So it seems that investors don't seem to have the same appetite because they're worried about the overhead costs, resourcing, there's supply chain distribution, like you were talking about. There's so many elements that tie into product side. Is there somewhere where you look at it and say, here's the best way to go to market? Take this product you're going to build, chop it down to the most bare minimum. Like you mentioned, the iPhone, where it came out, and it was pre-BlackBerry, so you couldn't even copy and paste on your iPhone. People are like, this is amazing. And you're like, you can't even do the basic functions that any other phone could do at the time. How is this amazing? But again, you're right. It changed the world because of one feature, which was all glass. And that really just opened up the whole market for them. So is there something that you can share on that side? Because I think that's important, because investors really, if you're going to pull them into it, what makes them want to invest?
Well, that's a great segue into the whole investment side. And the first thing I'll say, it's been interesting to me. I'm a part of a lot of accelerators. I do a lot of mentoring, obviously look at a lot of investment opportunities and look at them alongside other people. And when you do all of that stuff over time, you realize, oh, wow, investors do have not all the same perspective on these topics. Some really lean in to distribution and go-to-market plans for whatever the company, and they're like super interested. How are you going to sell this product? How are you going to make money? And those kind of investors, if they ask you ask them like, well, what's important to you and what should we focus on? They'll be like, show me the go-to-market plan and how we're going to sell this thing. You might have other investors with a more of a product or engineering background who are like much more interested in talking about how the product works and how it create value. So not every investor sees it that way. And if a founder is listening to this and it's like thinking about fundraising or getting people involved with it, understanding that the other person on the table, they're going to have some perspectives. They're going to have some things that they think are important. They're going to have some things that seem less important. It's good to suss that out. If it's obvious, great. If it's not, sort of try to tease it out from them, because not everybody thinks the same things are important. For sure. For me, on the product, so I am, longtime product manager. So I probably spend more time on the products than some other investors. And when I think about products, whether they be, and we do a lot of different kind of investing. So understand the product could be like a microchip to that would go inside of a headphones, or it could be the headphones, like the company that you and I invested in. It could be B2B software, it could be enterprise. Like we do a lot of different stuff. But on the product side, I'm definitely looking for 10x better. Like if you make a product that's just a little bit better than the competition, even if it's like measurably a little bit better, that is a hard place to start with, because like usually you're in some market where there are a lot of other options, and like kind of getting people to switch over to what you have, if it's just marginally better, is very difficult. So I'm like obsessively asking the founders, but like, how much better is this? And specifically, on what key metrics? So it's like, it's either going to make it cheaper for them to do their thing, it's going to be way faster, it's going to make them tons more money, it's going to save them tons of time. Like there's only so many things that a product can do, or it's going to create some lovely kind of enjoyment for them that they never had. So there's only so many things that these products can do. And you say, like, how do you measure customer value? Is it speed? Is it savings or whatever? And like, how is this not just a little bit better, but a lot better? And for the venture capital model in particular, where we're looking for these very fast growing companies that can grow very big, we really want to have a lot of differentiation. If you're if you're looking for lower returns and more steady growth or whatever, just coming out with a slightly better product could be a great strategy. You'll go win some business or whatever, but we want really big winners. So definitely looking for how do you measure customer value, and are you like way better than the competition? That's on the product side. On the distribution side, it really matters for the company. Like I was spending some time earlier today doing some work on one of our companies that builds a quantum computer, Nord Quantic out in Sherbrooke. We are not very concerned about distribution right now. It's just, that's not, all they're doing is building the product. It's not a question of distribution. When I think about a company like Whisk Solutions, which is that we invested in, which is software for bars and restaurants to help them manage their inventory. Yeah, I'm very interested in distribution. What is your CAC? What markets do you sell into? How long is the sales cycle? Because, the thing costs a few $100s, and I got to believe that you're going to get lots and lots of customers. I want to know, what is your plan to sell, and can you sell to large chains? And so it really depends on the kind of technology that you're investing in. Sometimes distribution is really, really paramount. SMB SaaS is a good example. How are you gonna really sell this? E-commerce or whatever. Other stuff, distribution is not as big of a deal. So I'll stop there, but that's kind of a little bit how I think about product and distribution from the investment side.
And of course, there's going to be a lot of those points that you mentioned that you guys are going to scrutinize against, because at the end of the day, if you're going to invest, you want this company to be able to take off, be able to get some good traction. As you mentioned on the quantum computing side, you're pre that market launch. So you're just working for them to get to a stabilized product. And then you're going to be in there KPIing it and coming up with the CAC and figuring all of those real elements on how that company is going to actually expand. So yeah. I think it's very valuable to understand how an investor thinks. And when they're looking at your product, they're not looking at it from, wow, this is an amazing gadget. This is so cool. We should invest. You're looking at, where is this product going to be in 4 years? Where is this product going to be in 6? And does this product have the legs and scalability from a distribution through a supply chain to get that product to be very successful in the next 4 to 6 years? And will it still be relevant? Or are they going to be, and I can't even think of the name now, that other phone that used to compete against Apple, was that, I don't even know, not Nokia, BlackBerry, but Nokia.
Nokia had a tough run there for a few years.
Yeah, there's a few that just couldn't handle it, right? Because they couldn't adapt to the new change. And, it's interesting that products do take a shift in look and feel. Homes are being renovated. They're taking a new look. Everything has to be somewhat created new at some point in time. And then what is that new 4.0, Web 2.0? Like, all those things are changing because we decide that we need to change the look and feel. So what is this product going to look like in 6 years, and will it scale and be able to be purchased and bought? And all of these elements have to come into your thinking as an investor. But on the product side for the startup, they have to be looking at these things too if they're going to be looking for big money.
Oh yeah, absolutely. On the topic of assessing deals, we talked about product, we talked about go to market, but we probably, especially at seed and pre-seed where we're investing, we're probably putting the heaviest weight on the team. You're really thinking like, well, what have you done? And based on what I know of you, do I think that you can navigate all of those things? Because it's like, it's mostly in the future. And it's, as you say, we can't really predict how the product's going to transform, how competitors will respond, how the market will develop, what other technologies will come in. Like it is not possible to predict those things. It's also not possible to predict how the team will behave, but you can use their track record and your own assessment of their skills and expertise and whatever to say, hey, I think you all have what it takes to navigate all of that, to go with the ups and downs. And when a company, usually the company has done some stuff before they've come to us, right? They've built an MVP or they've got something going on. We also use that and say, well, okay, how long did it take you to do that? How much capital was required? And if it seems like, whoa, they're really making good use of their funds, they're moving quickly, they're executing well, you take that, whatever data you're given, whether it's a year or 2 years of stuff they've already accomplished, not to mention all the things that they might have done earlier in their career, and then you project that out. And so we we put a heavy weight on that, because that's the thing at least we can see in front of us. As you can see from that description, this is one of the reasons why there ends up being a bias towards repeat founders and people with more experience, is because there's more stuff for us to measure and look at. And it's a bit of an ironic thing, because like a lot of the great companies will be created by first-time founders who have no track record, just because who knew what they were capable. Think about Francis from Sonder, which is about to go public. And I worked there and saw him operate as a very, very young guy. And, you could see, well, this guy is really something special. On the other hand, it's hard to take a risk on someone that's that young, and people put a lot of money bravely behind such a young team. And obviously he surrounded himself with lots of great people to support him. So there's a bias against first-time founders because there's a small data set. On the other hand, a lot of, Mark Zuckerberg, the list goes on and on. Evan Spiegel, like there's lots of people who have done it from a very, very young age. And so if one in our portfolio, because I've been focusing on pre-seed, we did back a lot of first-time founders. And it's been great to see that it's not just the people with experience that can do it. And often the first-time founders bring so much energy and ambition and charge to it. Like I'm thinking of a company I work with a lot lately called Axio that we invested in, very, very young guys, but the energy that they bring to it, the learning curve, that how quickly they take things on, how fast they want to level up as team members, that the energy of kind of youth, and when you're on the upward curve of your career, is very, very powerful. So it takes all kinds. As you know, venture capital is, you place a bunch of bets and some of them turn out incredibly well and others not as much. And sometimes it shocks you which are the ones that turn. And some of it is luck and the market forces. There's a lot of things at play. So it is, I've been impressed by how difficult it is. Not totally surprised, but I think coming from a product management has its own challenges, but you're trying to ship something for the next quarter or the next year. So it's a little bit closer in distance, what you're trying to achieve. Venture capital, these bets, as we call them, take years and years to play out.
I love it. Very thorough. And there was many points that I took down on there, but well shared. I think, the biggest one is that you got to look at it, like you said, is this going to be something that can 10X? Can this really take off? Can they support it? How strong is the team? It doesn't matter if they're first or second time founder. There's always biases out there. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to what's the tenacity and drive that founder is going to carry. And can they really take this further than, day one, call it first day of university? And are they able to make it their way through and graduate? And that's what you're really looking for. So it's pretty amazing and great share. There's a couple of things that one thing that I want to ask about, and we'll just quickly do it before we transition. But you mentioned community. You built some communities. You're very strong and passionate about the product community. How important is that to a business, and for your view of wanting to invest in an early stage pre-seed company about a community that they may or may not be building?
That's a great question, and this is a big trend now. I think I would have answered this question 5 years ago a little bit differently, but now I think a lot of companies are proving the power of community as a sort of incredibly authentic form of marketing, as a way of de-risking the early phases of growth in a company, as a way of kind of capturing people's attention and creating those virtuous circles, even if it's small groups, that everybody's like into this thing. So it depends on what kind of product you sell. Obviously, consumer products, I think community is likely to be more relevant, but you can see it in B2B as well. And like I'm thinking, even for example, so we have a company that we've invested in through our accelerator, Haleo Sleep, or Haleo Clinic, which does sleep. They do sleep therapy. So it's like digital therapy, but focused on helping people sleep better and dealing with insomnia. And this week they're going to hold their, first national conference, because they have enough people using this product that they're going to bring everybody together and talk about sleep and therapy. And and employee health. And so this is a B2B product, but of course, like you bring this community together and now people see at another level what they're involved in, why it matters. They create connections. And now, I mean, look at all the big technology companies that now basically throw their own conferences just to announce their products. Like, what are they trying to do? They're trying to build community and build affiliation. So I think it's extra relevant these days. There's a lot of, we live in a very noisy, very complex world. There are a lot of messages out there on a lot of different platforms trying to get us to do something or pay attention to stuff. And also in some ways we have less community than we ever had. We live much more sort of individualistic lives, especially, urban dwellers. So I think that leaves a little bit of, people are overwhelmed by these messages and they're looking for things to connect to. And that really raises the importance of finding community, even in the products that you buy or the stuff you do in your business life. So I think it's very relevant these days. It's something that we now sort of say, what's your community strategy, where we wouldn't have said that. And I'm even thinking of I'll stop after this, but one company that's done very well for us, BotPress, which is an open source tool set for building conversational flows in the enterprise. Like, so building little chat bots to request a ticket from IT or get your time off from HR. This is an open source software that has built a big community around building the software and distributing it and using it. And that's how they get customers. Now they have other ways, but like that was their source to all their initial customers, was through this open source community. So it can be, for some companies, it's like their main form of marketing is community. And that shows you how powerful it can be.
I love it. Wholeheartedly agree with that. I think it's something that you really have to think about when you're building your business is what's my outreach? Where are all the areas I'm going to connect with people? But how do I get people to really be part of the journey? And I think if you can tie that community in, they can live, learn, social investing, all of those things are becoming pertinent to that community because people do want to invest in the companies that they like and invest in the companies that they use their products from. And that all goes back to the community that group builds. So I think it's really relevant today in the investment world. So I love that. We're going to kind of shift now into, just before we get into the rapid fire questions, have one question, and it's kind of geared around any sort of story that you have that really shows what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And you've shared lots of great stories of founders that you guys have invested in. Is there any story that you really thought, wow, this is what it takes to be a founder, and this is what's going to get somebody excited to decide tomorrow that they're not going to work, they're quitting, and they're going to take and build their own company?
Well, sure. I mean, so many. And but when we prep for this one, and you were talking about resilience, and which is, and we've mentioned it here on the conversation, grit and resilience, which is like one of these personality traits or behavioral traits that is really essential to the entrepreneurial path. You can almost say it's like defined by resilience and grit because it's so difficult, especially at the early stages. So that is something I knew from working in these companies. So I've always been aware of it, but have taken on a new level of awareness and appreciation being an investor, because I've gotten to back so many companies and therefore have really seen people go up against it and come through, like down to the last day of cash flow or, closing that sale. We've just seen incredible determination. We just see it all the time. It is the essence of the entrepreneurial path. And especially during COVID, which was just a sucker punch for some companies, it was really great. Ironically, a lot of companies, it didn't really affect one way or the other, but a few companies, if you were in food and beverage or, hospitality, stuff like that relied on big people, big groups of people meeting, it was just like absolute devastation to the core business. So I had a few of those companies, and one that comes to mind who has now really turned the corner on the other side is Stay 22. Andrew is the CEO. And first of all, watching him, we invested in 2017 through Founder Fuel, and he became the CEO during the program. So just watching a guy like him mature into an amazing CEO has been so phenomenal. Like, he has a very, very high growth curve. And then, so he's growing and growing and like becoming this awesome CEO. And then he just gets smashed by COVID. And you see like, well, what's he going to do now? We'll lose 90% of the revenue within only a couple of months. And just cool as a cucumber, making the decisions, applying for the grants, making hard decisions and cuts where he had to cutting down the team, but like always doing it in a conscious, authentic way, not really fear-based, responding to the scenario, turning the company into like survival mode for like a whole year. How do we just survive, maintain our cash? And this is not going to last forever. We can get through this. In fact, how do we use it as an advantage? Rebuild the product, fix this, change that, change our cash cycle. And now the market has come back. They're totally the market leader in what they do, which is this kind of affiliate, where you're able to drive traffic off of a ticketing website or a media site into travel purchases, and they are the affiliate interface. So they're just killing it now, and just so like so happy to see someone like that succeed. Sort of get what they really deserved, and also just stunning to see the resilience, the grit, the sort of coolness under fire to respond to all of these things where it's like, hey, this is not my fault. Like, why is this happening? No complaining, just making it happen. So that's one. And I could sub out Andrew's story with 5 other entrepreneurs who also got hit hard by COVID and have also kind of adjusted in every way possible to come out the other side. So it's been a real proving ground for people, and just incredible how they step up.
I love it. Great story. And kudos to Andrew and the team for being able to work their way through that, but very, very exciting. And as you mentioned, it's always interesting how a CEO will approach something. And he obviously looked at it as cool as a cucumber, as you mentioned, but taking everything that they needed to do and shift in the right direction and work through it. So that's a great story. We're gonna shift now into the rapid fire questions. So the way they work is one or the other. Ready to roll?
I'm ready.
All right. Business questions first. Would you rather invest in a founder or co-founder?
A founder.
Unicorn or 4-year 10x exit?
Unicorn.
Tech or CPG?
Tech.
Brand or tech?
Brand.
AI or blockchain?
AI.
First time founder or second or third time founder?
Second or third time founder.
First money in or Series A?
First money in.
Angel or VC?
VC.
Board seat or observer?
Observer.
Safe or convertible note?
Safe.
Lead or follow?
Lead.
Equity or interest payments?
Equity.
Favorite part of investing?
Just getting to work with entrepreneurs. They're incredible.
Wholeheartedly agree. Number of companies invested per year?
We were doing about 10 a year, a little slower this year as we pull together our next fund.
Brilliant. Any preferred terms?
Fair terms where everyone succeeds together.
Verticals of focus?
We're broad based, but I'm especially interested in deep tech and IP first companies.
Okay. 2 things that stand out for you if you're going to invest in a startup?
Founder and the market opportunity.
Perfect. All right, we're going to go to the personal questions. Book or movie?
Book.
Superman or Batman?
Batman.
Pizza Pop or ice cream bar?
Pizza.
5 minutes of Bezos or Oprah?
5 minutes of Bezos.
Arsenal or Manchester United?
Arsenal.
Yeah! The third fan. Brilliant. I'm assuming you're a fan, right?
I got no love for Manchester United. Let me put it that way.
Oh, okay. Well, at least you're thinking about being an Arsenal fan. That's good. All right. Bike or rollerblades?
Bike.
Big Mac or Chicken McNuggets?
Big Mac.
Trophy or money?
Money.
Beer or wine?
That is tough. I'll go with beer.
Alarm clock or mobile phone?
Alarm clock. No phones in the bedroom.
Oh, nice. Hotel or hostel?
Hotel.
King or rich?
Rich.
Concert or amusement park?
Concert.
Fortune cookie or birthday cake?
Birthday cake.
TED Talk or book reading?
Book reading.
Has life been boring without Trump?
Just fine.
Hey, you're also an American, so I'm just making sure. I know you've become completely Canadian, and being that you grew up where you have, you're almost Canadian anyhow. So
basically.
True. All right. So favorite sports team?
Ooh. I'll go with the Celtics.
Oh, nice. The Larry Bird days.
Yeah.
Favorite movie, and what character would you play in the movie?
I'll say The Godfather. Who could I play? That's a good question. I think I'd probably play Tom Hagen.
Which character was Tom Hagen?
He's like the consigliere. He's not the star. I don't think I can pull off Michael. Maybe
Tom
Sonny.
Hagen was pretty good.
Maybe Sonny, the hot-headed guy, but he gets shot pretty early.
All right, I like it. I actually was just watching that whole series about 8 months ago. I haven't got through it all. I think I did first and second.
Yeah,
but great series. Favorite book?
Favorite book? Infinite Jest.
Infinite Jests?
Infinite Jest, David Foster Wallace. It's a doozy, but recommended.
All right, done. Perfect. Good recommendation. All right, first brand that pops into your mind.
Coca-Cola.
Most famous person that pops into your mind.
Barack Obama.
Nice. All right, last question. What is your superpower?
Interesting. I would say connecting people and talking.
Those are two good sets to have. I like it. Brilliant. Well, Isaac, I'm going to say that you shared a lot. It was brilliant. I enjoyed the entire conversation, as I do. I took a ton of notes. I'm old school on that side of it. But again, thank you very much for all of the things you shared today. It's been great to get to learn more about yourself. And of course, the rapid fire questions were great. I find it's like a big science project. So I get to learn lots, but the rest of the world gets to learn a lot as well. And we're happy that you were able to jump in today and share a little bit about yourself and, of course, what you guys are doing at Real Ventures. And I hope that in the future, we'll get to have you come back and talk and share more stories, because you've got some great founders and some great companies that you've been working with. But like we like to do, and the way we like to end our show, is we like to give you the last word. So anything that you want to share to investors or to the startups, we turn it over to you. And thank you again for all your time today.
Well, thank you. It's just a treat. It's a really fun conversation. My last words, it sort of depends on who's listening, but if you're already, for the founders, as I've said, like it is all about the entrepreneurs. So much respect to what you're doing. And it's just incredible how the world changes due to basically the will of people to see it in another way. So keep doing that thing. And for those who are watching, who are trying to maybe think about getting more involved into the startup ecosystem, this is where it's at. I'm so happy to have devoted my career to this community. I think we're doing awesome stuff, kind of making the world better, safer, more efficient in all sorts of ways. And so now's the time, if you're not already involved, to get involved, because there's lots of stuff, great stuff going on. Thank you for putting this together and for doing this work. I think it's really cool.
You bet. Again, Isaac, thanks for all your time today. Brilliant.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, that was awesome. Isaac just pulling all the punches there, but shared a lot of detail around the product side. I think that was pretty valuable. Talking about building community, which is huge for your business. When they're diving in and looking at what it takes to invest in a founder, they got to look 5-6 years out. They got to look at, is this product relevant? What does it look like? Are people going to 10x? Can they 10x this? A lot of great things there. Awesome background, of course, from the Yahoo days all the way to Saunders and Frank and all these great businesses that he was part of, and being able to take what he knew in the product marketing side and really help these companies take over and grow. And now looking at what they're doing at Real Ventures, just phenomenal. Resilience and grit, that's what it takes to be a founder and what it takes to win. And again, thank you very much for that deep dive in everything and around product. It was brilliant. So thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and or Stitcher. Please like and comment. It always helps everybody else find us as well. You can also check us out at supportersfund.com, or for startup events, visit opn.ninja. Thank you and have a great day.